Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcus White.
And my name is Fight Mode Nick Cavalli.
And we welcome you, as always, to the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Today, I would like to personally, officially welcome you to the 2020 World Wrestling Classic!
Yes, today we are going to be seeding the competitors in the World Wrestling Classic 1 through 32, baby.
Yeah, so we have our 1 through 32 ranking all set up, which means all we have to do is put them into their brackets, figure out what the first round matchups are going to be. And while, yes, it's a bit of a tease that we won't be giving you any matchups, this is not a show without drama, because we have just learned via the creator of the World Wrestling Classic in our world, Triple H, that Brock Lesnar losing the WWE Championship at WrestleMania has caused him to be out of the World Wrestling Classic unless he can win a first round fight-in matchup against Keith Lee.
Yes, so we're going to get to see if the Beast Incarnate can go over the limit this one. We'll see if he wants his way into the tournament. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Don't want to waste any more time.
Alrighty, so with Brock Lesnar being out as the number 1 seed, we are going to actually bump Kenny Omega to the top seed in the bracket. So let's go ahead and throw Kenny Omega in that top left square at number 1.
Alright, so Kenny Omega is in at number 1.
Then we'll go ahead to that bottom left square, and Kenny Omega's number 1 opponent is going to be Drew McIntyre. Alright, so now we'll come to the top right where we will have our third-rated seed Tetsuya Naito go in at number 1 in the top right, which leaves the bottom right to NXT's Adam Cole, baby! Now these guys, as you all know, are fantastic competitors, some of the best in professional wrestling, and we are going to have some great matchups for them, despite them being heavily favored against the 8 seed. So let's go ahead, once you have that all filled in, we will go ahead and figure out who will face who in that 1 versus 8 matchup.
Everything's all set.
Alrighty, so the number 1 seed is Kenny Omega. So we now need to decide who will face him of the bottom 4. So Scorpio Sky, Moose, Takahashi, or Flip Gordon. So let's go ahead and take a look at our possible matchups. I think our best case scenario would be a 1 versus 8 matchup of Drew McIntyre and Moose. The best possible scenario for 2 big men. Would you agree with that?
I would agree entirely there.
Then we'll have Kenny Omega taking on Hiromu Takahashi from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Left side of the bracket is all set. We go to the right side of the bracket, and only Scorpio Sky and Flip Gordon are left. I am going to say we will put Adam Cole, baby, against one Scorpio Sky, and Tetsuya Naito will go one-on-one with Flip Gordon. So we'll move on to the number 2 seed. So we want to put the strongest number 2 in the bracket with the lowest number 1 seed. So we are going to go ahead and throw Volter into the number 2 seed in the bottom right, which will leave next, I believe, Tessa Blanchard. Yep, we will put Tessa Blanchard in the top right. We're going to make an executive decision, and I think you know where I'm going with this. We are going to instead put Johnny Gargano in the bracket with Drew McIntyre and put Kazuchika Okada as the number 2 seed in the bracket with Kenny Omega. Alright, so Volter will be taking on number 7 seed from WWE, Roman Reigns. Assuming you're okay with this, I'm going to go ahead and put Darby Allin up against one Tessa Blanchard. Johnny Gargano will go one-on-one with one Sami Callihan. And Kazuchika Okada will go one-on-one with Daniel Bryan in what would be an indie fan dream match. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, if you must, taking on Kazuchika Okada.
What makes these first couple matchups so fantastic is the fact that you're getting a lot of indie darlings, if you will, going at each other. I mean, you've got matchups like Kenny Omega versus Takahashi. You've got the Okadas versus Daniel Bryans. So, and then you're also still getting your big men like Walter versus Roman Reigns. You're getting Drew McIntyre versus Moose. So it's nice that you're getting a good combination of both. So everyone has something that's interested for them.
And honestly, who would not love to see Drew McIntyre versus Moose or Walter versus Roman Reigns?
I think the biggest wild card you have here is the Tessa Blanchard versus Darby Allin match, and you don't really know what you're going to expect from that type of matchup.
Well, Tessa Blanchard is very hard-hitting, and she should have a hell of a matchup with Darby Allin. It's going to be a very, very difficult match to pick. We will find out the winners, of course, for those matches next week. All right, so our number 3 seeds are AJ Styles, the American Nightmare, Cody, Rush, and Jon Moxley. So we're going to go ahead and we will put, oh my gosh, doing it again. Just let me click. Thank you. Jon Moxley in the bottom right. Then we will move on and put Rush in the top right. You know what? I'm going to make an executive decision. Let's go ahead and put AJ Styles over there. Go ahead.
Disagree. AJ Styles needs to be the top left.
2 reasons. First of all, there's not a single WWE guy in the top right yet. Second of all, you don't want Kenny Omega and AJ Styles on the same side of the bracket because you never know. You always want the best 2 people available to compete at the end. And if you ask people who they would love to see most, it's probably Kenny and AJ.
I don't know. I think I would rather see those 2 face off earlier in the bracket, and you get the opportunity to see someone different going in at the end potentially, rather than obviously having your favorites kind of go in on each side. Maybe get a little bit of this. Also creates a little bit of a bracket buster situation where you have to make that hard choice and decide between a Kenny or an AJ Styles.
That's actually perfectly fair. So then we will go ahead and put Rush in the top right and the American Nightmare Cody in the bottom left, which is that will finish up our 3 seeds. I think that actually does look pretty good. So that brings us to our 6 seeds and who these 3 seeds will be facing.
Yes.
So our 6 seeds are Le Champion, Chris Jericho, Pentagon Jr., the Villain, Marty Scurll, and the Sicilian Psychopath, Tommaso Ciampa. So we'll go ahead and look this over with 2 AEW guys being in the mix. It's going to likely be that we'll have an interesting AEW matchup or a dream match of sorts.
Yes.
So
we all know what the heart wants here, right? I mean, it almost writes itself. The fight forever scenario. You got to put Tommaso Ciampa at that bottom left.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So
yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Sorry. I don't know how I went past that. So Tommaso Ciampa will face in the first round the American Nightmare Cody, and as much as the heart may want it, he still has to get through Cody to get this. And you know what? How about a little retribution? AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho.
Yes. The rematch we never got.
Yes, the rematch of Y2AJ.
Y2AJ, the greatest tag team in WWE history that was like a week long.
Additionally, I would like to put Marty Scurll against Jon Moxley. This is a match that, unfortunately, based on Skrull's love for and alliance with Ring of Honor, we will likely never get to see. However, it would be a fantastic contest, leaving us, of course, with Pentagon Jr. and Rush, which leaves us only to the 4 and 5 seeds remaining.
Yes.
And this is where things get interesting. Bottom right corner, the 4 seed, is Keith Lee versus Brock Lesnar. We move up, and it will be Hangman Adam Page. Hey, Lethal draws the bottom left. And the top left, that's Will Ospreay. So now we have a possible... these are what, if every favorite wins in the top left, you will get Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay and AJ Styles versus Kazuchika Okada.
So now we just have to get those 5 seeds sorted out. Get these last couple matches.
The Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins, TJP, and Pac to pick from. So, let's see. Okay, well, let's see. Who would be best suited out of that group to go one-on-one with Will Ospreay?
I mean, your immediate answer is TJP, right? That's the first one that comes to mind.
But then you also have to think, well, Pac, because, also the flippy stuff. But I think TJP might be the right answer there.
Yes. Again, giving everyone something that they want in the initial round. So everyone's just, for all different styles of wrestling that you've come to watch, you're getting it all in that initial round there.
So I am going to go ahead and say Seth Rollins to the bottom right, which will put him, ironically, in the same bracket as both Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley. And just so we can get some cross-brand promotion, I will say Finn Balor will take on Hangman Adam Page, and the bastard Pac will go one-on-one with Jay Lethal to complete the 2020 World Wrestling Classic bracket.
So there you go. All the matchups have been made. You take one final look over the bracket here. We've got Kenny Omega going up against Takahashi on the left side. Still Will Ospreay versus TJP. AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho. Okada taking on Daniel Bryan. Drew McIntyre versus Moose. Jay Lethal versus Pac. Cody versus Tommaso Ciampa, and Johnny Gargano versus Sami Callihan. We then, on the right, move over to the right side. We have Tetsuya Naito versus Flip Gordon. Hangman versus Finn Balor. Rush versus Pentagon Jr. Tessa Blanchard versus Darby Allin. Adam Cole versus Scorpio Sky. Either Keith Lee or Brock Lesnar will be taking on Seth Rollins. Jon Moxley versus Marty Scurll. And Walter versus Roman Reigns.
Alrighty, so before we get finished here, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a breakdown talk. Are there any real possible round one upsets? Guys that you think will absolutely have the opportunity to beat the guy who is better than them? Because, I mean, looking at this, the seeding is pretty fair, but it's still really close. Like, anybody could win any of these matches.
So, I think, obviously, the first name that comes to mind is you look at someone like Chris Jericho in his match against AJ Styles. Obviously, AJ, he's got youth on his side. He's gotten, with experience, though, with Chris Jericho, like a fine wine, he just keeps getting better with time. So, obviously, with Chris Jericho being the first AEW World Champion, he has the potential to get one over, potentially, on the Phenomenal One and perhaps advance.
I would agree with you on that. The one that really has caught my eye, and ever since you mentioned it, was Tommaso Ciampa over Cody. Just to have that ability to go again with Johnny Gargano in the ring, that would be the driving force behind that matchup.
Not only just to go with Johnny, but to potentially send him home, knock him out of the bracket, like just have that sweet satisfaction. I think just another chance to prove that you are better than Johnny Gargano. I think that's going to be a huge motivator for Tommaso Ciampa there. You look at some other matchups, I think one that could shock you would be Scorpio Sky going over Adam Cole, because Adam Cole probably wouldn't know a lot about someone like Scorpio Sky. I mean, he's relatively new in the industry, and you know Adam Cole, cocky as ever, so I think you could definitely potentially have Scorpio getting one over on Mr. Adam Cole, baby.
Well, and if you look just above that, you have the Impact World Champion Tessa Blanchard versus Darby Allin, and the Ring of Honor World Champion Rush taking on Sagan Jr. Those are two world champions of two of the smaller companies taking on two big-name AEW guys. You have three world champions in that bracket.
I think
in addition, you have a world tag team champion.
I think everyone's going to make the mistake of sleeping on Tessa Blanchard. I mean, because of the fact that she is a female, everyone's going to immediately write her off and assume that Darby's going to go over, or if she does win her first match, that she'll end up getting eliminated in the second round. But she is a world champion in a, not a small company, but still a relatively large company in its own right. So don't sleep on the Impact World Champion, Miss Blanchard.
Alrighty, so we have all of our sleepers. Are there any ones that you want to go out on a limb right now and say they absolutely will be taking the night one win home?
I think so if you look at some of the easy ones, I would say it's like Jon Moxley versus Marty Scurll. I think the AEW World Champion walks away with that one relatively easily. I would also look at a matchup, and you may not like this, but I think Kenny Omega versus Takahashi. I think Omega walks away with that one. Obviously not easily.
I love Takahashi, but I would agree with you. I think that's one where, yeah, Kenny Omega walks out as the winner of that matchup pretty easily. And I'd say the same thing for Kazuchika Okada and Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's a great competitor, but he is not on the level of Kazuchika Okada these days.
Again, I mean,
could be proven wrong.
Yeah, that's one where I would maybe disagree slightly. I think one that's super hard is super easy is the Johnny Gargano, Sami Callihan. I think Gargano's got that matchup on lock personally.
Well, I'd say the same thing. Don't sleep on Callihan. He's a really good competitor. I think if you look at who has the hardest road, say, to continue in the first round as a higher seed, it's got to be Walter. Walter drew Roman Reigns in round one, and Roman is not someone to sleep on.
Absolutely. And even if you look at who he potentially would have to face the next round, if Walter somehow gets past Roman Reigns, he's going to have to...
He's got Jon Moxley.
Yeah. Same thing, obviously, if you go to the other side of the bracket, you look at someone like a Drew McIntyre, he has to face off against Moose, former Impact World Champion. And then on the very next round, he'd go on to potentially face either former Ring of Honor Champion Jay Lethal or the Bastard Pac. So it just doesn't get easier.
Hey, former Dragon Gate World Champion.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, you don't want to say anybody has an easy road, but you got to think you want to be in that top right bracket, right?
I would say, honestly, if I look at this, if you're in that top right, you probably have not an easy road. I mean, you still got to get through the likes of potentially either Hangman or Finn Balor if you're Naito, or Pentagon Jr. later on. If you're the top left, I would say, at least for the first two, you definitely, while I wouldn't say there are easier matchups, you're taking on guys who, I wouldn't say more technical prowess aren't on the level of you. Like when you get to like a Will Ospreay or a TJP, I think you could maybe just use your advantage, like in terms of you knowing how to control the pacing of a match. more so than them in order to get you on to that next round. Where you're going to struggle is when you get into the ring with the likes of potentially an AJ or a Jericho, or obviously later on, potentially an Okada or a Daniel Bryan. So that's where you're going to really struggle if you are that top left seed, Kenny or Takahashi, whichever one of them advances further.
All right, so if you had to pick one person right now that is going to come out as the winner of this, and of course, for those of you who don't know at home, we haven't booked this out yet. This is a as we go, on the fly booking decision. You had to pick one person who was not a number 1 or 2 seed to win. Who would it be?
I would have to say Scorpio Sky. I think he comes into this with the one of the most to gain, in terms of being one of the lower seeds. He is at the bottom as an 8 seed, so he has nothing to lose. He's coming to this just trying to make the most of his opportunity. And I think a lot of people, again, are sleeping on him coming into this tournament. I think he's going to surprise and shock a lot of people. He's chock full of athletic ability, and he's going to make a huge impact, I think, in this tournament.
All right, the one pick that I have, now, don't get me wrong, I'm looking at these 3 versus 6 matchups, and pretty much every single one of them is producing somebody that I think could go. You know, Cody could go. AJ or Jericho could go. Pentagon could go. But the guy that I'm looking at is Jon Moxley. I think Jon Moxley takes this whole thing, and he's one of those few guys outside of the 1 or 2 slot that I could see really taking it. But if you're going to go as deep as you go, a 7 or an 8, I would say look out for Darby Allin. Now, I don't even know if he's going to get out of the first round, because he drew really tough with Perséphone, which was one hell of a fighter. But I'll tell you what, Darby Allin, and we've seen it week in and week out on Dynamite, is willing to go through hell if it means he can win. So we have some interesting matchups coming your way. But before we end, I have the results for you of the Keith Lee versus Brock Lesnar match that just ended. Keith Lee hits the Big Bang catastrophe on the Beast Incarnate for the 1, 2, 3.
So it is official. It is Keith Lee at that number 4 spot at the bottom right. He will take on the Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, your first round matchups are set. Please submit your picks to us if you guys have any comments on any of the matchups, any dream matches you think could happen down the line. Please let us know. We'll be happy to take into consideration what everybody has to say. And of course, everything from here on out goes the way as everything goes in wrestling, week by week, and we will find out within probably, it looks like maybe a month or 2, who will be the champion of the World Wrestling Classic in 2020.
Alright, so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign out. Of course, our next video will be the Wednesday Night Wars. That will be airing for you guys on Friday night. So make sure you stay in tune for that. How do you get ready for that? How do you know when it's coming? Well, that's because you obviously be subscribed to our YouTube channel, got the notification bell rung, or you are following us on our social media links down below on the Twitter, the Instagram, and the Facebook. And while the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast is currently only available on YouTube, if you go ahead and follow us on the Spotify, the iTunes, the Google Play, and the Podbean, when things get back to normal, then obviously we will provide you with those spicy audio podcasts. So with that being said, for live from Studio 6, my name is Marcus White.
Live from the spare bedroom, I am your World Heavyweight Champion, Fight Mode Nick Cavalli.
This has been the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast, and as always, we invite you to join the Wrevolution.
The Wrevolution. Have a good night.
Have a fantastic night, guys.